Hey everyone, me again, here in the Hangry District Kitchen as I teach you ways to entertain your guest on this series, Are You Not Entertained? So we've made a roasted chicken, and one of my favorite things to go along with a roasted chicken is a sourdough bread salad with lots of lemony vinaigrette and some toasted pine nuts and some sort of dried fruit, in this instance, golden raisins. So the first thing you want to do is get a nice bowl or loaf of sourdough bread, and we're just going to tear it apart very rustically. This recipe is inspired by one of my favorite restaurants in the world in San Francisco. It's called Zuni Cafe, and you have to order a whole chicken as soon as you get in for 2 people. They roast it in this fire-roasted oven, this wood-fired oven, and it gets crispy and delicious, and then they put all of that chicken on top of this delicious bread salad with some spicy greens and some crispy bread, and it's just divine. So we're gonna try to make that today. So I'm just pulling apart some sourdough bread very rustically. It's very hard for me not to want to eat all this right now. The texture is incredible. So I'm gonna pull out some of these middle pieces for all those craggy edges to get nice and golden. And just rip them apart. They can be kind of big. I like a big bite of the bread in the salad. Just keep tearing to nice chunks. You can pull some from the center. Okay, so we've got this beautiful bread. Pop it into this bowl. And I'm going to melt some butter in a skillet over here. You want to be liberal with your butter. I think I have about 2 tablespoons here. You can also do this in the oven. If you coat your bread with olive oil or melted butter, just toss it in a big bowl with the melted butter, olive oil, and just pop it into the oven about 400. Should take maybe 15 minutes. You really want it to dry out because you want it to sop up all of the delicious chicken juices and the vinaigrette. While this melts, we'll talk about the pine nuts. So we have raw pine nuts here that you should always typically store in the fridge. It's a common misconception. When you're storing nuts, you want to either store them in the freezer or the fridge once you've opened them. They can go rancid. So these have been in the fridge, and you can tell they're also raw. So we're going to toast them up with the bread in the butter, but we don't want them to burn. So I think having the bread in the pan will act as a little bit of a mediator in that. And then we're also going to add in some golden raisins, which should plump up with the butter that we add in there. So we have our butter melting in this pan. In the splash zone over here. And just as it all melts together, I'm going to toss in the bread. And actually I'm gonna start with these golden raisins so that they can hydrate a little bit. Just give those a quick stir. Butter does have a very low smoke point, so if you are not achieving the color that you want on your bread, you can add some olive oil to sort of give you an extra bit of time. All right, the bread is going in. Just gonna crisp these up. Want the bread to absorb the butter and then start to crisp and brown. Bread down. I've never done this before, so this is a fun experiment that we're doing together today. Lost a lot of raisins in this process. They're on the floor. The bread has absorbed the butter nicely. It's all fluffing up. The raisins are getting a nice color. Just gonna let that go for a little bit. I'm gonna add a little safety measure with a little bit of olive oil just so I don't burn everything. And then if things aren't getting to the color that I want soon, I may just pop this in the oven and let it continue to crisp up. And turn down the heat a little bit and add our pine nuts. You just want to keep an eye on these to make sure that they don't burn. They should only take a few minutes. But with everything else, we have some barriers in here, so hopefully they don't toast too quickly. Oh God. If I had a dog, they'd be having a real field day over here right now. A lot of fallen soldiers. You can see our bread is getting nice and brown and crispy here. The raisins have gotten nice and plump. I'm gonna try one. Delicious. Okay, our pine nuts are also getting nice and brown, so I'm gonna turn the heat off. Let this continue to heat in the residual heat of the pan. So when this is finished, I'll transfer it into a bowl. And then when we get our chicken out, we'll assemble everything. And you can see how just adding a little bit of a bread salad to a roast chicken dish can really elevate it a bit. And we'll make a dressing too, that you can see how easy it is to make a dressing at home instead of relying on those bottled dressings from the grocery store with lots of additives and sugar. So stay tuned.